Hello, hello. Welcome to Call and Response. It is Monday, right, Mike? Is it a Monday?
I believe it is Monday. You know how I know it's Monday? It's because yesterday was Father's Day.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yesterday was Father's Day. Did you do that? Do
I
you do
think
that?
I don't know that I had a choice because I am a father. I don't think I could opt out, but I did do that in a sense. You're a father as well,
I
so I
am.
imagine you also participated.
I did participate, but it's still new to me because
Yeah.
I'm a new father and because I was not fathered, so I
Mm.
didn't grow up celebrating Father's Day. You know what I mean? It wasn't like part of my holiday lexicon, if
So
you
it's like
will.
it's like your personal Juneteenth.
Personal Juneteenth. That is another T-shirt, Mike.
I
Ding
think so.
ding.
Yeah, we
We
got
got
it.
to
We
get a
got them rolling.
T-shirt bell, man. I'm
We got
telling
them
you.
rolling.
Personal Juneteenth. Today is my personal Juneteenth. That's a great shirt that only black people can wear.
Hmm.
If I see anybody with it, might be slapped, but not, of course, until after there's a vaccine.
That's
Anyway,
real.
it is real. Uh, how you doing today, Mike?
I'm doing all right, man.
Yep.
It's Monday, start of a new week in an era
Mm-hmm.
where we're all still trying to figure everything out. So,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of hope in the world, but also a lot of uncertainty. How are you?
Well, what's giving you hope right now?
Honestly, a lot of the conversations that we're having, and that's not to be facetious
Yeah.
or to pat ourselves on the back too much, but some of the ways in which people that we talk to are processing the current moment
Yes.
is kind of helping me to not feel so isolated about things. And
Yeah.
I'm borrowing a lot of wisdom that we get and kind of trying to apply it to my own life wherever we can.
That's the secret, selfish reason this show exists. Because me and Mike get to talk to all of these brilliant people. You know what I mean? We have invited a lot of brilliant people onto this show, and we get to learn as
Hmm.
well. So I'm like an audience member, but I get to ask the questions in, in a lot of ways, which actually kind of ties into what we're going to be talking to a lot today. I think a little bit because today we have three fantastic guests that all very different people, but I guess what unifies us all right now, or at least what the theme we decided this episode is, is about black image in the media, right?
Right. Hmm.
And also controlling the narrative of how we are portrayed and who portrays us,
Right.
right? And so, and note that I said portrayed. Sometimes we get a little betrayed.
Oh, we.
Oh, wait.
You know,
Let me take you on a sea cruise. Is that where you just pulled that from in your
I
brain?
mean, not consciously,
Ooh-wee.
but you might have caught me borrowing a little
Okay.
more than I'm letting on.
You sampled.
But
That's all right.
one thing that's always been important to us,
Mm-hmm.
from the time we started doing the New Negroes to now, is that we have felt like image in the media in terms of blackness and how blackness is represented is important in the current moment too, because we've always felt like if the portrayals of blackness in media are more realistic and less two-dimensional and flat, then maybe it gives us a chance to be perceived as more human in our interactions throughout the day. Then maybe it it gives these, I don't know, I started to get emotional thinking about it because I think about
Ooh.
when you talk when a lot of times the police who end up murdering black men in these brutality incidents, when they're asked about what they could remember feeling, is always like this intense fear, this like gruesome stereotype of a person it turns into. And I think part of that is based on how we are portrayed in media.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always been important to us to make it real three-dimensional to people because we feel like ultimately that can help save lives, even though we shouldn't have to.
Absolutely. And I'm an actor, and as a person who has had to audition for Thug Number Two, and following numbers, the sequels, sometimes these character breakdowns, this is what happens when you go to an audition. They send you the name of the role. If the name of the role is not a human being, like it's not like Joseph, but it's Thug Number Two, you already know, oh, okay, I'm a human who's being asked to come and be not a human right now. They're asking me to come and be a caricature, and they have the character descriptions of what that thing is. I swear, some of the things that police say when they kill black men is shit they got from these character descriptions.
Right.
Of shit that I've auditioned for. And I'm like, are these breakdowns being sent to the police? Because I swear they're sharing information right now. This police officer said exactly what is a beast from hell. Oh, that's what I was supposed to go audition for Thug Number 2. I wonder where these narratives are coming from. So anyway, I just got a little raw right there. It kind of speaks a little.
It's all raw around here.
I know,
everything remains raw.
It is Eddie Murphy raw. That actually kind of speaks to a little bit about how we met, I think, as well, because we met at a comedy freestyle rap battle.
We did. We met at a battle.
At a battle, and I
guess
saw
who won that battle, y'all? Because it wasn't me.
Who won that battle, Mike?
It's only 2 of us here. It wasn't me.
Oh, did I win that battle?
You absolutely won that
battle.
And it was a comedy rap battle, so I came in very ill prepared because I came in with serious rap brain, which was not the brain to have in that moment.
Yes, that's the thing that was tricky about that show, because ultimately it is a comedy show. It's not a rap show.
Right.
And I would always kind of come prepared to rap, and I was wrong because it's a comedy show. But when I met you on that show, I thought you were a comedian that I didn't know. I felt ashamed I didn't know you. I'm like, who is this dude that I don't know that is clearly doing shit and is on the show? And then you rapped, and I was like, what? This dude can freestyle? This is insane. And so I was like, I had to meet you. And afterwards, you revealed that you actually were
a rapper,
a rapper. And you gave me your album, Rappers Will Die of Natural Causes, right? Which I bumped for a good couple of weeks, and I was like, this is pretty incredible. And then ended up getting to know you.
I mean, that's awesome too, because usually you hand somebody a CD, it goes directly in the trash bin. So I appreciate that you actually put it in the CD player and was listening to it.
I have bought a few CDs in Union Square Park, in my day.
Venice Beach, maybe.
Seriously, no. Look, if your first line the thing that you throw at me to get me to listen to you is interesting, then maybe what you have to say, if you thought about it, is interesting, and sometimes those people were actually pretty good, I hope they're not listening. They're like, I knew it, gotta get in the streets, stack the discs, Charles, we're going out, pandemic or not, son. The point is that I loved your music, and I thought you were a real poet, and it was unlike anything that I had heard up to that point. I mess with a lot of hip hop, and stuff that is not, that's off the beaten path. But at that moment that I met you, I guess I was kind of having a personal crisis with hip hop, because I didn't really grow up with anyone in my life that really knew about hip hop and was
like underground type.
And was able to share that with me, and challenge me and help me grow.
So you've been all through life just kind of going with, or only really knowing about the mainstream stuff, which at that point, we're talking 2011, 2012. It wasn't the most inspiring mainstream rap scene in the world at that time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there were people who were good that I liked, but there wasn't a lot of that. And so I was kind of like, where's the rest of the stuff? But I didn't know about what was happening on the internet. I didn't know about what was happening in all these different cities' scenes, where it's every city has like real MCs,
And it turns out, I mean, I think it's similar in comedy, right? Where you could be watching television. Like the first time I saw you was on, was it the Awkward Black Comedy Show? I think is what it was called.
The Awkward Comedy Show. Yeah.
And I tuned in because I knew Hannibal at that point. So I think that was like his first TV appearance.
Oh, was it?
Wow. I believe so.
Okay.
So I was tuning in for that, and I saw you on that show as well. And you seemed like super polished. You know what I mean? But it kind of clued me in too, that like, oh, there's so much more going on in comedy than what you can see if you only pay attention to what goes on national television. Like just like similar to what you're saying about rap, in all of the cities at the time, there's an all black kind of scene developing too. And you were the first person who I met and became close to that was really a part of that.
Wow. I had no idea. The Awkward Comedy Show was directed by Victor Varnado, and it was me, Hannibal, Eric Andre, Victor Varnado, and it was hosted by Marina Franklin. That was a show that a lot of comedians have said, like, I saw that, and that's incredible. So shout out to Victor Varnado for putting that together back in the day. The point is, though, that a lot of the times we're not the people who control the narratives of what becomes popular, of what gets seen by the majority of America and, in extension, the globe. So this is kind of what we're talking about today, I guess. And we have three fantastic guests that are going to have a lot of different things to say about that, because they're all just interesting ass, brilliant people. This is the only show where you can bring up somebody by going, they're just interesting ass people.
And successful. Interesting, brilliant, and successful, which is
focused. Yes.
Super fortunate to have these people on, you know.
And the first guest recently won an Oscar for the animated short film Hair Love. Here's a clip.
Yeah, for us, this was kind of an opportunity, I think, to put a little bit of positivity in animation. Back when we did the Kickstarter campaign in 2017, there wasn't a lot of representation in animation. And when I was coming across a lot of these viral videos of dads doing their daughter's hair, they were just so inherently joyful. Our biggest challenge was just to maintain that joy that made people gravitate towards those videos in the first place. And so to be here with doing something like this that centers Black hair and Black families, it's literally a dream. And I never would have thought in a million years we would win an Oscar for something like this. It's crazy.
Please welcome the call and response, Matt Cherry. How you doing?
Good, man. How you guys doing?
People call you Matthew or Matt. Which one do you prefer?
I always feel like I had different names depending on where I was in life. So Matt was like me in college, and now I go by Matthew A. Because it's a little bit more professional.
Yes, it is.
It does sound like a lawyer. Sounds like Esquire should be behind that.
Yeah, I also invented the tricycle over 100 years ago too. So just want to put that to you.
Oh wow! Okay, that's a fun fact I did not know. I love a good fun fact.
That's not on your IMDb.
No, it is not. Not on your MDib. What do you want us to call you?
Whatever you like, man. It doesn't matter.
I'm gonna call you Matthew. I'm gonna call you the whole name of Matthew. Well, first of all, let me just say, Hair Love is a work of art.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
It is a work of art. Now, this is a compliment, but I'm going to start it by saying sometimes I get interviewed. And the day dude asked me what I thought the difference between cinema, film, and movies were. And I kind of, gave him what I think is an answer. But my answer for cinema is something that is an intention with what you make. Cinema is an intention behind it. If your intention is money, that's a movie. If your intention is art, that's a film. But if your intention is both art and taking yourself forward, humanity forward, and the form in which you are creating a piece of art forward, that is cinema. And what you have created is a piece of cinema, Matthew Cherry. That's what I'm trying to say.
Nah, that's high praise, man. I really appreciate it. It really. Hair Love is just, none of us went into it with any intention other than just trying to have little Black girls and boys be able to see themselves in animation, I'd be lying if I didn't think overall that, if we did a good job that we may get some love, but, it truly was just about, representing for the kids and showcasing them and their hair and their different complexions and also Black fathers who, as you guys know, are so rarely not depicted so good in mainstream media.
When you conceived of that story, did you have any idea that it would resonate so deeply with people? I mean, because on paper it seems very focused. It seems like a very specific Black story. But did you have any idea that it would resonate with people across all different walks of life?
I don't think you can ever truly predict how a project is going to connect. I mean, this is like probably my 50th project I've done, be that a music video or short film, indie feature or whatever. I never would have thought an animated short film about a black dad doing his daughter's hair would have been like my biggest project. But I think the thing for us is that it truly is a human story, and I think it's something that fathers from all different types of races and backgrounds can relate to. I think in 2020 and beyond, like the idea of what a black father is has changed drastically.
Mm-hmm.
And even though obviously there are instances where fathers aren't present, but I think now you're seeing, especially in black men, there've been studies that actually have showed that black men are the most involved in their kids' lives, even if they aren't married to their partner. And just really want to represent that and really showcase how, young black men nowadays are just really all about their family and will do whatever they can do for their kids, be that have a tea party, be in a ballet class or do the hair,
Yeah, I think I mentioned in the introduction a very little personal detail about myself that I wasn't fathered. But, I bring that up in the sense of I guess you could say my journey with healing about that fact, especially now that I am a father to two young black boys. So, the thing is though, like, just like you said, statistically, black fathers are the most involved. My specific circumstance was my specific circumstance.
Right.
I made a little documentary about it. That the whole point of it is to show that I am not what people assume I might be because of that fact. Right. And also that fact does not work like you think it does, because a lot of black fathers, even if they're not, involved with the person that they had the child with, they are present in that child's life. And a lot of times live in the same neighborhood, they're just around the way. So that's how it actually works statistically a lot of the times. Now I did want to ask you about, because again, it's such a beautiful thing. But also there is some bigger purposes that were tied to the film as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Crown Act?
Yeah. The Crown Act was something that I was made aware of kind of in the middle of the process of us, creating the movie. And, anytime like there's like literal legislation that kind of helps support, the narrative of the film that you're trying to create, even in our Kickstarter campaign back in 2017, it said we wanted to help normalize black hair. And, this is a law that literally does that, as you guys may or may not know, oftentimes in school and the workplace, a lot of times black people can't wear their natural hair, in these professional environments. And a lot of times that ends up affecting how they're perceived in the workplace. And sometimes they even get discriminated against that for, and the Crown Act is a law that essentially makes it illegal to discriminate against a black person or any person for if they wear their natural hair in a work or a school environment.
I mean,
go ahead, Mike. Sorry,
that's one of the, being able to push that forward with a powerful piece of art like this just kind of underscores how important it is to tell these different kinds of stories, specifically the kind of stories that often come from the indie space, because you aren't trying to make $1.5 billion. You're not trying to make a blockbuster. You're actually trying to say thing that is important.
Yeah.
In this current moment, specifically as it pertains to COVID and how, all of the different medical restrictions are going to make filmmaking more difficult in a lot of ways. How do you think that's going to affect black indie filmmaking going forward?
I mean, hopefully it only affects it for like an abbreviated period of time. I think I've been hearing, stories of recently now that productions are technically able to go back up in Los Angeles that, essentially you have to add millions of dollars onto your budget to be able to support, way more thorough cleaning of the sets, doctors being there, being present, all the different sanitation stations. And you also have to have way less amount of crew people on the set. So that will also extend the shooting periods, a lot of these shows and projects. And so, my first indie film, The Last Fall, which I shot in 2011, we made that for like less than a couple $100,000. And, somebody told me I'd have to add $1 million to my budget just to be able to go. Right now, I'd probably be sitting on the sidelines and, waiting until this whole thing cleared up. So, I do think it's going to affect indie filmmakers because, oftentimes we barely have the resources to get our stuff made, let alone, to add an extra couple line items to your budget. But, I think Black people are resilient, and you've already seen so much creativity that's been happening in terms of people who are shooting things in different ways, and I think we'll figure it out and persevere like we always have.
Fantastic. And kind of jumping off that a little bit, I believe you famously tweeted a couple of years ago that you would one day win an Oscar. Am I right?
I said nominated because I know how the Oscars sometimes go. Sometimes the nomination, is the win in all of itself. But yeah, man, and I didn't know it would be for this. For me, I'm a former athlete, and
yeah,
setting goals is something that has always been important to me. And sometimes you have to like see it in advance to kind of know what you're working for. And for me, it was less about the actual win in terms of it being an award. It was more about having the platform to try to bring awareness to something that was important that was going on at that time. And this moment was the whole situation that was going on with people like DeAndre Arnold, and it's still persisting today. So and hopefully the Crown Act goes national and we can end this conversation. That could be one less thing our kids have to worry about when they grow up.
You have mentioned you're an athlete. You were an athlete, and I don't want to understate that. I mean, you were an NFL caliber wide receiver. And clearly that means you had put a lot of time and energy into developing your mind and body for that specific field. And now you've gone all the way sideways into entertainment. I'm wondering, at the beginning of that journey, with all of the time and energy you had put into sports, what did you kind of have to find in terms of courage to be able to walk away from that and chase an entirely different dream?
Man, it really was just all about just changing my mind state. You definitely have to humble yourself because, I went from my last team I was with was the Ravens in 2006. And then I moved to LA in spring of 2007 and became a set PA. So, I'm getting coffee, you know what I mean? I'm like, telling extras where to go. And it definitely is a humbling experience. But, I think filmmaking is teamwork, it's team building. It takes, some on some shows it takes 100+ people to get that one perfect take. And really I think a lot of the values that I learned being an athlete really translate really well into filmmaking. And there are a lot of other people too, like Thomas Jones, who's running back to play for the Bears. He's a pretty prolific actor now. There's so many great examples of athletes I think that have been able to successfully transition. Look at Kobe, how he was able to transition as well, and he has so much great things on the horizon too, before his tragic death. So, I think it's just, I think a lot of times people look at athletes and they kind of, write them off for whatever reason. And maybe they think that they're just doing it for the wrong reasons. But, a lot of the athletes that I know that have gotten into the film industry have been really passionate and are willing to do whatever it takes to make it.
I think there's a theme kind of emerging because it's like people are underestimating athletes, right? Have assumptions about athletes, especially Black athletes. People have assumptions about Black people and their hair. You know what I mean? And I just want to let Mike know I got 3 more questions, but just to let you know, so that way we're freestyling here, or at least I am. So yeah, the thing that I wanted to ask you is, off that theme of kind of like people trying to, I guess, control Black bodies in some sort of way, control the way that Black people look, assume that Black people must be a certain way because of your hair or your background, right? You had actually mentioned DeAndre Arnold before, just for a split second, and I wanted to ask you a little bit more about DeAndre because that's who you took to the Oscars. Am I correct? Can you talk a little bit about DeAndre?
Well, DeAndre, was just kind of the perfect case study, I think, that we needed to really help make the point. He's a young Black kid, in Texas, and he wore his natural hair in high school for all 4 years, you know what I mean? Going into the last semester of his senior year. His teachers basically told him that they changed the rule, and they basically said that you'd have to cut your locks in order to graduate. And if you don't, you're going to be suspended until you do. And, DeAndre and his mother and father, they stood up, they said, this isn't right. They spread the word about it. We caught the word of that. And, for us, we just really wanted to bring as much national attention to the issue that we felt like he was comfortable with, because it was just such a crazy situation, and he ended up leaving school, so he didn't end up graduating from that same school. I mean, imagine that, like being a senior, you have to transfer your last semester of high school, and the kid wants to be a veterinarian. You know what I mean? Like just
and it was all because of his hair, because he wouldn't change his hair.
And his parents are from the islands and everything too, and more so than a lot of people, his hair had a very big cultural significance to him as well, and he just wanted to take a stand. And for me, I think it just was important to really honor him and give him the platform that I felt like he needed to make people aware that this was happening in 2020, and it wasn't right.
We've had a lot of thinkers on. We've been really fortunate to have a lot of like really deep thinkers on. And one thing that tends to come out a lot is that there's been an emphasis in Hollywood on like the black pain stories and the black pain narratives. One, really fantastic thing about Hair Love was that it was kind of like a black joy story, even though there was some pain in it. I feel like what was emanating out of the film was a joy.
Yeah.
And in this current moment, when people are becoming people who haven't been very aware of racism and systemic oppression and police brutality are becoming more aware of it, where do you think that puts the value of the black joy story when everybody's becoming aware of pain in this moment?
I think it's just as important to have stories that center joy as it is that have stories that bring awareness and focus on our pain as well. I keep seeing tweets that are like, oh man, that's yet another slave movie and things like that. I mean, it's important. It's a part of our history. I mean, I think we need those stories just as much as we need everything else. But like anything, you need some counterbalances to it as well. And I think it's just never been a better time to be a black creative in that space, because, I think there's never really been a time where we've been able to have so many outlets to get our work out there. And, really, if you work in animation, if you work in documentary, if you work in live action, you'll definitely have a home to get your stories out there. And, I know for me personally, like, I do like stories that focus on joy, stories that are saying something, but they also have, they show that, there's some optimism to be had about this life that we live as well. And, those are the stories that I want to continue telling. But I also know that there is really important stories that also need to be told as well. And, those filmmakers should be able to tell the stories that they want to, as well, because it's all important. And oftentimes what ends up happening is stories like when Ryan Coogler did Fruitvale Station, movies like that end up becoming an educational tool in a lot of ways, and movies like Selma and When They See Us, people that often wouldn't even be aware of these stories or would look away, because now they're in the cinema and people are talking about them. It forces people to take a second look at these stories and examine them in a way that they may not have examined them before. So I think it's all very important.
Especially in the hands of true artists, like yourself or Ava or Ryan Coogler, the filmmakers. You just
Barry
mentioned.
Jenkins.
And Ryan Coogler's another former athlete, I believe, as well. So my last question or questions are artsy as fuck. I hope you don't mind. If this was a stage show back in the day, if me and Mike were on stage together, artsy as fuck would become a hook that I would sing, and then I would be artsy as fuck or something, like, I don't know, it'd be crazy. Anyway, I hope I don't offend you with my language, but
no, you're good.
in the sense of Hair Love, and because I love that just love is even in the damn title, you know what I mean? So it already kind of gives you a sense of positivity just from the title of it alone. But the look of it, of the animation, the style, the feel, the flow of it is beautiful. It is really so well done. And so I kind of wanted to talk to you, because both Mike and I are fans of animation, and different kinds of animation, from different countries and all that stuff. So wanted to talk to you about telling this story, what it's like to tell a story through animation as opposed to writing something that real actors will do, why you chose animation, and also like what kinds of direction, what kind of visual cues did you give to the artists that you collaborated with to come up with, and how many like passes did you have before you came up with this look and this feel?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the main reason why we wanted to do animation was, I joke with people about this all the time. I say, if Hair Love, the exact same story, shot the exact same way with live action, I don't think it would have had anywhere near the impact that the animated version of it had. And I think that's because a lot of times when you think about it, animation tends to be one of the most universal forms of filmmaking. Like when you talk to people and you say, what is your favorite movie from back in the day? 9 times out of 10, you're going to get a Lion King in there, Beauty and the Beast, a Dumbo. You're going to get, one of the classic Disney movies or Pixar films kind of in that lexicon. And Karen said something when we won in her speech. She said, animation is the first form of filmmaking that kids are exposed to. And I think with that being said, there's just something about the medium that makes it universal. Like the reason why Moana and Coco and Into the Spider-Verse did as well as they did, again, Black films come out all the time, and a lot of times they don't do hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office. But animation, it's more of a family thing, and I think it just kind of makes people relax a little bit when they're watching a story that doesn't focus on them, because they're used to seeing animals and allegories that are told through all different types of kind of inanimate objects, right? And so for us, the look of Hair Love, obviously there's been a big debate about like kind of the current style of animation and people really wanting that old 2D style back. For us, because also we didn't have a lot of money, we had to be very creative. And we thought that, 2D would be a more cost-effective way to get the story done. Because hair was such a big part of the story, 2D was just better for us in terms of being able to manipulate it and make it look the way we needed it to look and move the way we needed it to move. A lot of these big 3D, animated features, I mean, like Moana, for example, you're talking like whole teams that are just on the hair, millions of dollars that are put just into making the hair look right. And we just didn't have those resources. And, I think for us, in terms of the direction, you just pull from like a lot of real world examples. A lot of times, like our other directors, like Bruce Smith and Everett Downing, would like physically record themselves acting out different parts of the scenes. And then we would send those to the animators for reference, so that they would know like, okay, this is how, when somebody says this line, his hand goes up and then it comes down, and then the eyebrows move a certain way. So it's like very technical in terms of making sure that the emotions come across in a certain way. And as you guys know, Black life is even more specific. And so, when you're dealing with animators who may not even be of that particular race, it's very important to really have a team of people that just stay on top of it so it looks authentic.
Just switching gears for my final question. A couple of years ago, it seems like a moment was starting with Moonlight, Get Out, Sorry to Bother You, these brilliant Black films that are coming out, critical acclaim, and people actually love them and spent money to go see these movies and talk about them. I feel like Hair Love, winning an Oscar is like part of that moment. And I wonder, from your perspective, what has to happen for us to sustain that moment?
I think it's like it's funny because I'm sure this question has come up so many times throughout the history of Black film. Like you have the Blaxploitation era. You had the early '90s when Spike Lee and Ernest Dickerson and Reggie Hudlin and Matty Diop and everybody came through. I think at the end of the day, like there's never been a time where we've had more outlets to get our work out there. I just think we have to all support our young Black voices. You know what I mean? Every time somebody sends me a link to their reel or they send me a link to their Kickstarter campaign, I always try to support it and back it, just because you just never know. And I know, back when I was more on the come up, I would have loved to have that same support too. And so I just think all we can really do is just support our filmmakers. I think when people get that foot in the door, we have to pull people in behind us. And that's why I think things like what Ava DuVernay does, where she literally reaches back to people that have done their first indie film or have done a music video, whatever, and gives them opportunities to work in television. TV directing is extremely hard to break into. And I can probably count 30 different people who got their first TV directing opportunity from Ava, who've gone on to do many more episodes of television directing. So, I think it's going to take people like that are very specific in their intention of bringing people up behind them to really keep this thing going.
Fantastic. Well, I have no other questions. How about you, Mike?
I mean, I think that's a lot to chew on and process.
It really is.
It feels great to talk about this, especially with you, because of the energy that you've been able to bring, and that, like, I can attest to the fact, like, watching you on social media, that, like, what you just answered in terms of bringing people forward, paying it forward, making sure we're raising the platform and shining a light on all the Black creators. Like, you live that every day. And so it's great to hear you say that that's the important thing to do, because you demonstrate it all the time and inspire us to do it as well.
Oh, man. I really appreciate you brothers for having me on. Chicago represent.
Yes, sir.
And, man,
of course.
I really love what you guys are doing. Seriously.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much, Matthew Cherry. He is at Matthew A. Cherry on Twitter. Of course, his Oscar-winning film, Hair Love, is out there. Go see it if you have not. It is a beautiful piece of cinema. Yes, we're going to take a little break, and up next, we're going to have actor and good friend Ernie Hudson here on Call and Response.
Wow. That's all I can say is wow.
I love that we don't have like a definite back in like line or anything. Like we just came back in and you just emoted. Just that's the kind of show that we're doing. Wow. Still got the feels.
Yeah, man. And you know, for me, it's important when I can embody my feelings. Like that's part of my therapy journey. So any opportunity I get to do that out loud, I'll take advantage of it.
This is part of my therapy journey. I think that's another t-shirt. Ding, 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 ding.
Well, it's like 4 t-shirts today already.
You are just a t-shirt machine, my man. What can I say? Yeah. Any thoughts or feelings about what we got to hear from Matthew?
I mean, just that it's inspiring to me. You know, it's just really inspiring to me. You know, when you grow up and you watch the Oscars and you see somebody win an Oscar, you can like, you know, I'll just speak to my experience of it. I'll think about that person like they live on another planet than me. You know what I mean? Like it just seems like a far away thing that happens in a whole nother universe. You know, but for him to handle that as gracefully as he has and to continue to be, you know, a person who can just come in and talk about community and be able to see the struggle ahead still. Like I think that's really great. Okay.
Well, I literally have nothing to add to that. I did. You actually, yeah. Okay. I like that you said all that. I feel like maybe your heart's getting a little warm.
Just it might be like 42% right now.
Oh, 42 is the answer to the universe. Okay, fantastic. I'm really happy to bring up our next guest.
Absolutely.
This gentleman has a IMDb page so long I actually had to turn the page with my literal finger to see all of the credits. I actually had the honor of working with him on a little Netflix show called Grace and Frankie, but he is here to talk about a brand new show. Can we roll that clip, please?
Let me make myself clear. Heat belongs to the Duncans. It was invented by the Duncans, and it is manufactured by us, and only
family business that can be seen on BET Plus. Mr. Ernie Hudson, how you doing, Ernie?
I'm doing fine, guys. Great to be here and talk with you guys.
I'm happy to have you. Mike, any feelings to put on Ernie right at the top of this?
No, feelings don't work that fast for me.
What? Oh, okay. I just always feel bad. I always feel bad, I guess, taking the first question.
Well, I got a question. Because to me, that role that you play on Family Business, right. Elsie Duncan is his name, correct?
Yeah. Elsie, yeah.
So I feel like that role, like 15 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to conceive of like a black, ruthless businessman / kingpin in a show that positions that family almost like, you know, like The Sopranos, like that sort of depiction. Right. And I think it's one of those things that just kind of shows us how far we've come along in terms of the varied kind of stories we can tell involving black people. And it makes me wonder, just from your perspective, like, what do you think is the next step? Like, what kind of roles do you think we should still be pushing for to see in the future, since we're seeing new things right now?
Yeah, you know, I'm seeing so much. I started acting over 50 years ago. And when I first came into the business, it was a matter of we just kind of wanted to get in, and we took what we had and you try to bring something to it. And now I'm seeing shows that, you know, I just couldn't have even imagined even 20 years ago. Things that we told ourselves and we said it could never happen, it's happening. But what I would love to see, we talk about, in your last interview, you talked about the joy movies and the pain movies, that the humanity is able to come along with the pain. You know, I've seen some that it's so rough that I come away not feeling the humanity that's shared with all of us. And so for me to be able to play this role about a guy who loves his family and at all costs will protect his family, he feels to pursue his American dream, he has to in addition to a successful business, he has to also do this undercover, crime family. But I would love to see a show like that without the crime element.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
a guy who runs an empire that isn't, driven by all the negative things. But what I do love about family business is it's family, and I think the humanity is there, the characters, the children, and how they play in it, and it's a little bit different. Certainly, it's a different role for me to be able to bring the dark side as well as the brighter things, because a lot of things I've been asked to do over my career is I went from being kind of this muscle guy to bodyguard to best friend to but it's all been kind of, sometimes not all of it, but sometimes one-dimensional in the beginning, and so you have to find ways to bring the humanity into so it's nice when it's there and you can just play it, and this is just one of those parts based on a series of books that Carl Weber, I think there are about 9 books in the series, so it's kind of all laid out there, but now to portray it in television, it's great, and it's a little bit different. I've seen it, we talk about The Godfather, The Sopranos, but it's nice to see it in a Black family.
So this is a series of books, so there's like a whole universe that we get to look forward to.
Exactly.
Kind of being expanded in all these different characters and all these different ways. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, Ernie knows, Mike kind of knows that I'm also an actor. And so when Ernie says a phrase like, this is a different role for me, that's a phrase that actors say that I think a lot of people who don't act don't understand what that means to us, when we kind of get used to having to play a certain thing because of the way things work. And you just said you've been in the business for 50 years, and we're talking about the future too, but you have, like I said, I had to, turn it with my thumb. You've been working for so long, and you kind of spoke to it a little bit about the ways that your type has changed. So I'm curious as to what it means to you based on what you've had to play, what makes this role different, what it means when you say it's different for you. And also I want to hear about like kind of the different types you've had to play through your career, and then including one very famous movie that we all know about called Ghostbusters, but we'll get to that in a second.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I think when I started acting back in '66, I just wanted to work. I just wanted to be, to get a chance to work. A lot of the roles or the projects were not, most of them, if not all of them, were not written or conceived of by Black people. So there's a place in it, and you want to get that one little spot. And you want to give them what you think they want, and in the meantime try to do something, and so I've had friends who've been very successful where there have been projects created for them. I'm not one of those guys. So being a single dad, raising my 2 older boys, by myself, I needed to work. And so for me, whatever the role called for, I had to adjust and become that. But in time, people do see, I think after Ghostbusters and a few other things, I became the nice guy, the best friend, the whatever. What I like about family business, it gives me a chance to play some darker notes, to feel some things that you wouldn't. I did a movie called something Gallows. I don't remember the name of it, but it's these
somebody look it up.
Happened to this family, and he's so noble, and that would never happen in life, but somehow in taking the role, you say, okay, how do I make this work? And but you just don't feel honest about it. And so it's nice to be on a television show. You have time to develop. It's nice to be able to I think the integrity is the honesty, and that's a little bit new, because I'm one of those guys who kind of go, okay, so the guy's this, the guy's funny, so how do I fit that in and still kind of maintain some kind of humanity and yet tell the story that they or whoever it is wants to tell. I'm not the guy. I'm not, the filmmaker who creates the concept. I come in to tell my part of the story. And so I feel as an actor, it's my job to help tell this story.
Yeah.
And then whatever you can bring into it.
Well, I think it speaks to the fact that you have been working for so long as you have, and that you continue to work, speaks to the fact that you always bring such humanity and dignity and integrity to every single character you've played, no matter what the role. So it's like there's a lot of actors out there, but people don't to really work like you do. People don't understand how good you actually have to be, and you are fantastically good. And I just want to shout out all the other Matt Cherries out there. If you want to write a role for Ernie Hudson, here he is. Okay,
that's right. Yeah, not hard to find.
Not hard to find. Now, I did want to speak to you about Ghostbusters, but also I wanted to bring up the fact that you are actually you're in Minneapolis right now, right?
Yeah. I have a home here in Minneapolis. I have a place in LA as well. But my wife, she's from here. Her dad will be 100 in November, and
wow.
5 years ago felt the need to be here with her mom and dad. Her mom has since passed, but so we bought a place, and to me, I was good with that. So, but I've always I met her here 45 years ago, and I've always loved Minneapolis, which is a little bit surprising that they're having so many of the issues with the police department. But so when I'm not working, I'm normally here.
Well, I was curious about what it's been like from your perspective, what's been happening out here, out there. I mean to say, because you were there before all the protesting and stuff started.
Yeah, and like I said, when I first came to Minneapolis in '73 or something, it's always been a very progressive place. I love the people here. I'm from Michigan. I love the Midwest. But the police it's a whole other kind of, I don't know. It's just, it has its separate thing, and there's some issues with it. And so now we're dealing with it, and we're having to face it. But I love Minneapolis. I love being here.
Yes, you love the people.
Yeah, but I think, and also becoming aware, because sometimes if you're not dealing with things personally, you don't see a lot of stuff that's going down. So,
and you've been in the business a long time. You've been working in and around Hollywood for a long time.
Yeah.
And so, were you working in LA around the time of the '92 uprising around Rodney King?
Rodney King, yeah. I've been maintained a place in LA since the mid '70s. So yeah, I mean, these things come up.
Yeah. And
we raise the issue, and we seem like we're going to deal with it until it dies down, and then we kind of go back to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping that this time we will honestly, and I feel there's a change, deal with and address some things and make some honest changes, because it's so easy to slip back into what was. I'm hoping that won't be the case now. And I felt in '92 that's what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're all so aware, and we have to do something, and what can we do? And then 5 years later, we're back to having to deal with the same stuff.
Yeah. We gotta get out of here in just a split second and let you go. But I did want to talk to you a little bit about Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So some people called it, I saw an article that called it the painful what if, which I thought was slightly dramatic, but it's a painful what if to me in a lot of different ways. Yeah. And some people don't know what I'm talking about. So you were famously played Winston in the seminal film, is that the right word? Ghostbusters. Can you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like for you? Because there's a story about a script change, possibly.
Right. Yeah. It's funny because now I'm at an age. I'm looking back 36 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
When I first did the movie. I talked to Ivan Reitman, the producer of the movie and director, and he has a whole different recollection than I had. Mm-hmm. So now somebody's memory is a bit faulty. Just from my perspective, I got the movie Ghostbusters after working for quite a while, and it was an amazing role. I mean, I think the word is Eddie Murphy. They had tried to get Eddie. Maybe it was written that way, but we rehearsed the movie for several weeks, and then the day before shooting, the script changed. The character was cut out of the movie. It was devastating to me because I had basically took no money. I had made some sacrifices to do this movie, and it was it was a struggle when the movie came out. The character wasn't on the poster, and on and on and on. I can go through all kinds of stuff. Now, jump ahead 35 years later, it seems in my mind the perfect little movie. I mean, it's just perfect the way it is. And I realized that a lot of decisions were made that had probably nothing to do with thinking about my perspective. But when you're the actor, it was all about my perspective. And it was it was a real hard to figure a way to how do I stay in this business, not hurt somebody, which is what I would have done,
Yeah.
And keep moving forward and keep being positive. And I think that it was a real growing thing and necessary for me. I don't know about necessary, but it was definitely something that I feel like grew from.
I feel like the industry grew from it too, though. I feel like it was important to have a black character
in that movie. It was important to me. It was important to me.
Yeah, and it was also for me. It was important for Winston to have that. We talk about the humanity be intact, because it was so easy to slip. And a lot of times, directors and that whatever people will hint.
Yeah.
If we could just get a little bit more of that kind of colorful whatever.
Yes.
But I just felt that his place was, to bring that to that character was really, really important, to not be that stereotype, at least in my mind, that I just didn't want him to move into that,
Well, to me, the most important line in the entire movie is Winston's line. I think you're driving in the car and you say something to the effect of that you believe in the biblical shit. You're like, you studied the Bible, and it's your performance in that scene brings this fear and this terror. It makes the whole universe, makes the whole movie work, because you're not even a scientist and you're like, this is getting really scary, and you deliver it in a way that makes the whole movie become real for me. So I'm glad that you have continued to work, and I'm glad that you are currently on a show on BET Plus called The Family Business, which returns July 2nd. That was the most deft transition into a plug I think I could have ever pulled off in my life. I'm growing right in front of everybody's eyes. Ernie Hudson, has been an honor talking to you. And
Great seeing you again.
We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for spending time with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Great talking to you.
Okay. Well, let's take a second to think about what we learned.
What did you learn, Barrett?
What did I learn?
It really seemed important to you to soak up some of his wisdom and game, having been in the business and seen as much as he has. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. Because Ernie Hudson's the real deal.
Yep.
He's the real deal. When I met him, you meet somebody and you don't know what they're about, especially if you saw them as a kid in a bunch of movies. Ernie Hudson is in every movie. I can't even count the amount of TV shows and movies I've seen him in. So when I had the honor to meet him, and he was like such a gracious, like the person we just met, he was such a gracious, generous person. And I was like, oh, you're the real deal. We didn't get to talk a chance to talk about some of the activism that he's engaged in, but we got to talk about that on set, and I was just like, wow, you're like a gem. You're like a gem, a diamond in the rough. So it's like people like Ernie Hudson are what make Hollywood works, and makes and gives me people like me who I go, all right, well, some people around me have become really huge stars. Clearly I'm good, because people want to keep hiring me, and thinking about how to stick and weave, through this industry, which Matt gave us some gems about, and which Ernie gave us some gems about. And this next person that we're about to bring up also has some gems, I think, and maybe also some synergy, and maybe also some holograms. I think that what she's going to say is going to be truly, truly, truly outrageous.
Outrageous, yeah.
For one thing, the music's contagious. That's one of the things.
And we just don't want to be misfits. That's all.
We don't want to be misfits, even though their songs, some people think their songs are better. But like for this person, like no one else is the same. Phoebe's her name. Please welcome to the show, Phoebe Robinson, everybody.
I love that so much.
Do.
That was really good. Thank you.
I'm not ashamed to say I watched Jim and the Holograms as a
Jim
kid.
was tight.
It was tight, very tight.
Jim was tight.
I used to get defensive. I used to have to go like, it was on after G.I. Joe, which is true.
Right. But they packaged them
cares?
shows for a reason.
I don't
You know what
remember
I mean?
G.I. Joe. I remember Jim and the Holograms. Hey, Phoebe, how you doing?
I'm good. So nice to see both of you.
It's nice to see you too.
Good to
It's
see
very
you
nice
too.
to see you.
It's been too long, you guys.
It really has.
How has
Really
it been for you being locked away? being in home jail for a while.
Yeah, I mean the core, my boyfriend and I.
Don't you start. Don't you start. The
That's
core.
what I call it, the core.
Okay.
That's the cutest. That's the cutest way I've ever heard it described.
But
Okay,
we
so
were
the
early-
core.
Yeah, we were early adopters, so we started quarantining March 6th. So we are 110 days, I think, inside. Which I think we were just
110 days. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
I think because New York is the hot spot for it, we took it super seriously. And so we were really like not going outside as much. And now we try to go outside maybe like twice a week, once to the grocery store and once just to take a walk. It's just, you know, living in an apartment in New York, you're not built for quarantine. Like I'm so jealous of people who like have a house and they have grass and or they even have a balcony. I'm like, oh, you can see trees right now. Like you can participate in photosynthesis. This is like major, you know? But I think, you know, the core, it's been good that I got to read a lot. I really got to bond a lot with my boyfriend because we were both traveling so much. This is the most concentrated time we've ever had in the 3 years we've been together. And I think with just thinking big picture with like all the uprisings and, you know, just I feel like a lot of change is happening surprisingly, like because people are not at their day jobs every day, they can really focus on being an activist in their own way, which I find super inspiring. So I think it just depends on the day. Some days I'm like really excited, and other days I feel a little bit down. But I do feel like permanent change is gonna happen this time around. I don't know.
Wow, that's great. Well, I hope you're right. You know, I strangely kind of feel similarly, but we're gonna wait and see what happens. We actually have some guests coming up this week that might be able to shed some light on that, which is pretty cool. But I'm glad that you're having a good time, you know, and I know you, and I know your boyfriend, and he's like a tour manager or something like that, right?
Yeah, he was a tour TM for the Lumineers, and so he left in December to start a travel agency, and then
oh goodness,
COVID started.
Yeah. But I only bring it up because both of you before this were traveling a lot individually. Like he's traveling with the band, you're traveling doing book tours, doing stand-up, doing interviews, having meetings, sipping martinis, you know, at the club. Just all the things that Phoebe Robinson is doing, which is a lot of what we're talking about today. We're talking about controlling the narrative, right? And if there's one thing that I can say about Phoebe Robinson is that you are a very self-made person. You know what I mean? You have taken no shortcuts. You know what I mean? Phoebe is one of my best friends, and I've had the honor of witnessing all the different things that you have done and all the ways that you've put different things together. So I guess I'm kind of curious about, and we're going to lead up to your first book as well. But I'm curious about what is it that you know, they say sometimes like create what you don't see, create what you want to see. And I guess I'm curious to you, like, what is it that you felt was missing that when you looked around, you said, there's a hole, there's a lane that isn't being filled, and then you kind of moved toward that. What do you think you saw?
Well, it was just I started doing stand up 2008. I think we met 2009 maybe.
Probably, yeah, in your first year.
Yeah. And
Life Cafe, I think.
yes. Oh my gosh.
I remember.
TBT. That's a true TBT. And I think 2014, and then in 2013, I quit my day job to write on this VH1 show that didn't go to
What was your day
series.
job?
And I was an assistant at an internet company, like just like basic admin assistant. And 2014, I just couldn't get hired for anything. Like I was submitting, writing packets and going on auditions, and I just wasn't booking anything. So to me, I was just like, the industry is missing me. So I just sort of I was like, well, I have to do something. And I think, especially with stand up in New York and I guess anywhere, a lot of the scenes don't include women or include people of color, include queer people. So when Justin and I started Two Dope Queens, I think we started doing shows in 2014. We were just sort of like, there are all these amazing, brilliant people who are doing stand-up and they're not getting past the gatekeepers for one reason or another. And we were like, usually it's either race or gender or sexual orientation. And we're like, well, why don't we just book people that we think are hilarious? And we fully did not expect it to take off. We didn't think it was to us, it wasn't anything revolutionary. We're just like, this is common sense to just book a show with really funny people. And the fact that people respond this way let me know, like, oh, there was such a dearth in is that the correct word? Maybe. But there was such a
dearth, like a lack.
A dearth, yeah.
A lack.
Yeah, like a lack.
Is
that how you? Isn't
I think that's right. I think that's right.
A dearth, right?
A dearth.
Yes. Yes. A dearth.
A death. And so it just made me go, oh, people were really craving this and missing this. And Jets and I would get DMs on Facebook, like our group page, and would just be like, I never went to comedy shows because it was just all like white guys in the lineup and there was no one that I saw who looked like me, so I figured stand-up wasn't for me. And so that was when we were like, oh, okay, this means something to other people, which was really, really nice.
Now I want to were you about to ask your question, Mike?
You already started. You already started.
No, go for open mic, Eagle.
Okay,
well, I mean, the question that we were talking about before we got on, when you asked me about what kind of comedian she is.
Oh, yeah.
Because I was going to transition into that.
I do have that question. I wasn't going to ask you right then, but I can now. I had asked Baron before we got on whether or not it was appropriate to call you an alt comic.
And I said that's a question that you should ask Phoebe. Because, some of the true believers, some of the Phoebe Robinson fans know that before Two Dope Queens, there was Blaria, right?
Yes.
And that you kind of, your collaboration with Jessica Williams, who it's almost like you were chosen to meet each other in some sort of weird way. And then you became Two Dope Queens. But before that, you existed, right? And you were doing stand-up and you were trying to get yourself out there. What scene were you drawn to? What comedians were you drawn to? And would you consider yourself an alt comedian, as Mike said?
Oh yeah, it's a great question. So yeah, before we started Two Dope Queens, it was about 6.5, maybe 6 years of me doing stand-up solo. And I used to host a show where we all got paid in like beer and nachos and
very New York.
Yeah, very New York. I would take like the dollar bus to Boston to do shows. And so I think I was definitely like an alt comic. Like I wasn't passed at any clubs. I would just kind of get up wherever, like bars, like I've done apartment shows, laundromats, just like cool, like indie venues. So I guess, yeah, I'm an alt comedian and I have no problem sort of owning that. I think that's fair to say what my career trajectory was until that point. And I kind of liked it. I mean, it is definitely like, there were definitely moments where I was like, oh, I'm not like passed at any clubs. Does this mean that I'm not a legitimate comic? Does this mean that I'm not funny? And it just sort of was kind of like, okay, well, this is just the path for me and I'm just going to follow it and not question it. And, I think part of the reason why I wasn't in that many clubs is that I wasn't hanging around them that much. Like there was just something, as you guys know, comedy is so sexist and so racist. Right. And so the fact that I'm a Black woman, I was like, this is going to ruin my soul, I felt like. So I was just like, people were just so catty, and it was making me sort of like talk shit.
We used to talk about this on the instant messenger. We would
yeah,
talk about this,
and it just I just felt like, I don't know, it just made me, I think, not that I was a bad person, but it just made me, I think, a little more petty and not really sort of focusing on the craft and too concerned with what other people were doing and what other people were achieving, and I wasn't moving as fast as them. And so once I like sort of got out of that environment, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna kind of put my blinders up and just sort of do what I want to do, and take the long way, I guess.
Well, you got to work. You started creating.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely did suck when I was like, I am so poor. I'm sick of being in an apartment with like mice or like a ceiling that has mold on it. But I do think that I was, I think you stayed in my apartment that had mold in it.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Was it in your living room? Was it mold in your living room?
No, it was in my bathroom. Remember? It was like the ceiling. I
just felt like I slept under it. That's why I asked if it was in your living room, because I felt like I was on this couch going for a whole night then you're like, oh, there's mold in here, and I'm like, what the hell are you? Why didn't you say this before I came over here? I was
just so used to it. I was like, I'm living in New York and I have mold in my apartment. But I took the long way, as I think you would agree to, and I think in the long run that was sort of the way to go.
Well, and I think that's kind of what I wanted to get at, right? Because, alt in terms of taking a long way. And I think that also means you bring a different perspective to things. It's not like the mainstream path perspective with everything that you create. And I wonder, like, you being a self-made person and all the work that you've done and all the different kinds of projects, like in this moment where we've all been locked down and everything has slowed down, like, what does that mean for your economy? Like, what does that mean for the kind of work you want to do, that we're in this kind of like stasis period?
Yeah, I mean, I think, me starting my production company last year, Tiny Reparations, under the ABC Studios umbrella.
Greatest name ever.
Thank you. But I think that was sort of, obviously I couldn't have predicted like this global pandemic, but I think being under this deal, like now with my head of development, Jose Acevedo, we have just really sort of taken this time to really develop projects and really make sure that we are crafting scripts and shows that are really reflective of like various backgrounds. And I think that maybe if everyone was sort of going at 90 miles per hour, or just trying to like get something, for pilot season or get something in this cycle, not that, I mean, our intention was always to sort of be really representative, inclusive, but I think now we're even more intentional than we were before. And we're making sure that we can find these, these co-writers or these showrunners or these directors or producers that we can co-produce with, who really fit in line with what we want to do. And I think, we're always told this sort of thing that like, there's just no people ready. There's just no people of color who are ready. There are no people of color who have stuff, but it's so not true. So I think what's been great now is like, we're getting like all these scripts in and we're reading these samples and people are coming up with like ideas for stuff. And, it just really makes me excited that once we come out of COVID and can sort of start shooting in a way, that we'll really have stuff that's going to be super cool and interesting and quirky and all that stuff. So we're still working.
Yeah. That all fits into what I know about Phoebe Robinson, which is that you have always been very focused, very diligent, and very disciplined. You kind of, for lack of a better term, you put your mind to it and then you do it. You kind of come up with the plan. I guess that's the lesson that I'm saying that you are proof of.
I'm very type A.
You very are type A. That's right. A success. What? Okay, that's so dumb. And Gamora. Biblical puns. What? Can't do no biblical puns? So see, Phoebe likes it. So okay, there are a couple different things I wanted to ask you about right here. Obviously, another thing that you are working on right now during the pandemic, which is a very easy thing to work on, whatever that means, is you are a writer. So you not only writing scripts, but you're writing I think you're writing another book, a third book right now. You're trying to
Yeah, I turned in my book proposal last week. So
congrats on that
yeah,
part.
I'm very excited.
Yes.
Thank you. Thanks.
Phoebe is a New York Times best-selling author. She has a couple books, but the first one, let's go to the first one, because it kind of fits our theme a little bit today. It was called, I believe it was called You Can't Touch My Hair and Other Things I Still Have to Explain. Yeah, there's the title. And I wanted to talk to you about the inspiration behind writing that book, and also what it is, if the book is the answer to a question. What's the question? Actually, that's a dumb question because that's the title of the book. The title of the book is the answer. No, you can't touch my hair. That's actually the answer to the question. So talk about the book. How about that? Let me just make it simple and try not to Elvis Mitchell it.
So, I love Elvis Mitchell. Yawns.
I know.
Okay, so 2014, I believe. Yeah. So I used to have my Blaria blog, and I think I was just on some random like New York comics who are like up and coming. You know those lists where they put you on like for like the first 15 years of your career. You're always like, yeah, I've been up and coming forever. So
I'm still up and coming.
Yeah, I've been up and coming for 6.5 years, and my lit agent just sent me an email. And he's like, "You're probably already working on a book." His name is Robert Ginsler, but he was like, "If you're not, I think there's a book to be had. I think you're really funny, and it could be really cool." So we sat down, and I think I always secretly wanted to write a book, but I just wrote these, very short 500-word blog posts, maybe 1,000-word blog posts. Like I had no idea really how to go about writing a book or an essay collection, other than I like to read them. And so I just am a title person. That's like the first thing I always come up with. And I just felt like throughout my life at that point, people had always like tried to touch my hair, and it was really, and I know I changed my hair a lot, so sometimes people can get very excited.
I remember I would be around you. We'd be at a show, and you'd come out. It would be like we do a show on Tuesday, we do a show on Thursday, and somebody who was at both those you have changed your hair, and you would walk in, and then somebody would freak out, just like, "What? You did it?" I'm like, "Can you calm down?" Like it was always like that.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, that's kind of funny if we just call it You Can't Touch My Hair, and then I could do like a fun essay collection about, so I really sort of talked about like me sort of coming from this place of where I used to hate my hair because I used to perm it. And of course, when you fry your hair, it's not going to be perfectly straight like a Jennifer Aniston or what have you. So I really had like all these feelings and emotions about my hair, and how I got on this sort of like journey to really love my hair and feel positive about it, and see it as like a symbol of pride, and like that it is professional, that I can wear it anywhere, that I'm not this like edgy person for having my hair natural. Like that's just, how my hair grows out of my head. And so writing that essay collection, that came out in 2016. So I wrote it in 2015. So when I was like about to turn 30. So it was just very sort of like, you're so like, now that I'm about to turn 36, I'm like, oh my God, 30 is so young. Like, like you're such a baby at 30 still, you don't even realize. But it was just sort of like me being like, okay, I can take up space and write a book. Because I think what happens a lot of times with authors of color, in particular Black authors, like you compare yourself to the canon, right? So you're like, well, my book isn't like this urgent James Baldwin or Toni Morrison, so does it not have the space to exist? But then it's like, well, I just want to tell funny stories and make social commentary, and I could just be like a Black David Sedaris or what have you. You know what I mean? Like I could just be funny and I don't know, write to readers like they're my best friend, and that's just as valuable as writing like the next great Black American novel, whatever that means.
That's such an important, that's such an important point to me, because I feel like that what you just brought up about taking up space is something, especially if you're the kind of creator that doesn't have large corporate backing and you're not pushed by a giant team of people, like that's something you have to deal with all the time. It's like the self-talk to take up space. I'm wondering if there's any advice you'd have for people who are kind of on that precipice where they do feel like they have something to offer, but they have an internal doubt about taking up space.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things I think I still battle with from time to time where I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can say this in a meeting, or oh, I don't know if I can own this, or oh, I don't know if I can negotiate for the pay that I think I deserve. And so I'm sort of the mind that you're always going to sort of have those thoughts. It's not about eliminating them, it's about being able to be like, you can overpower them, right? And so I think, especially if you're going to be in an artistic arena or what have you, I think just like taking the time to sort of do stuff not necessary to advance your career, but to just develop the skill set. Like me starting Blaria was not because I wanted to become a New York Times best-selling author. I was just like, well, I have this outlet. I like to write, and maybe I could develop my voice this way if I'm just writing a blog that, I don't know, maybe 200 people read at maximum. And I think that really helped me just sort of take the pressure off and just be like, if I want to say I'm a writer, I just need to claim it by just writing 3 blog posts a week. And that's what I did. It's like I set a schedule and I would be at work finishing my blog post when I was supposed to be like, booking my boss's like travel. And so I just was sort of like, if I could just get up every week and put this blog out there, that is me taking up space, and it's okay. And if someone hates it, it's fine. If someone thinks it's great, that's also fine. It's just an act of me doing it. So whether it's like you want to play music or you want to sculpt or you want to like fashion design, just do it, because you never know where it's going to take you. And I think that's the thing that people forget, because everything is so commodified. So you're not always necessarily creating from a place of pleasure, but a place of how can I turn this into profit?
Right.
And so I think it's easier to take up space if you're trying to do it for pleasure first.
Awesome.
I don't know if that
Fantastic
makes
advice.
sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. Makes
Thanks.
perfect sense. Because also taking up space, not only is it just a good spiritual practice, right? And I think that that's kind of the thing here, because even in your book, you're going through a bit of a spiritual journey, in your relationship with your hair and what it means to you, and what you've been told it's supposed to mean, all that stuff, and letting that go. But that's also very true about how a career is supposed to be built. We all have this external idea, of the steps we're supposed to take and how it's supposed to look. But when you don't easily fit into a box, you have to self-create, which always feels really frustrating, because you have to invent shit that hasn't been there. Which brings me to a phrase you said, I could be maybe a black David Sedaris, right? So that's a very interesting thing that people do, call somebody a black blah blah blah, and we also describe ourselves as a black blah blah blah. And I remember it's because we think about like race as like, well, a black person is not allowed to just be funny. You know what I mean? They're supposed to have to talk about blackness. Blackness will inform your comedy, but it doesn't mean that you have to specifically say something about blackness. So the fact that you even go, oh, black David Sedaris, is indicative of that space not being filled. You know what I mean? And that there isn't a go-to person that you think of who's like a comedy writer that's just doing funny essays about, about the world in your own unique style. Like even the way that you play with the page, and like, just like, you write like you talk, and it's quite refreshing. And the point of that is to say that now people are going to say, we need a young Phoebe Robinson. Like now you have taken up the space and created that where people are going to compare themselves to you or compare other writers to you. You know what I mean? And we do that to each other. We do that to everybody. But it's like being able to take up space means you become part of the lexicon. And just what you have done is been focused and disciplined and evolved and pivoted, and now you are part of the lexicon, and that is an incredible thing. It's been an honor as a person who considers you like a sister to watch you rise, and I couldn't be prouder.
Aaron!
Oh, whoops! I tricked you into saying something sincere in front of everyone.
That was
you thought
a
it was
good
going to be that was going to be a question. I just wanted to compliment you in public. Whoopsie!
I'm going to say something to that too. When you talk about taking up space, I think one of the ways you can tell somebody has become comfortable with taking up space is when they can accept a compliment gracefully and sincerely without shrinking You know what I mean? And as we compliment Phoebe and how she, she dances and pops her collar, I'm like, oh, that's tight. Like that's
Yes,
somebody
yes.
who's an excellent compliment taker. And I think that's evidence
I had to
of
work
being
on
comfortable
that.
taking. We all do. We
Yeah.
all do.
Well, we're complimenting you because of the work that you have made. You know what I mean? We're literally everything we have to say is because of shit that literally came out of your head. That's the thing. So that's always the truth. Anyway, I think we have to leave.
They're gonna kick us off the internet any
I
minute.
think
now.
we
They're gonna kick
have
us out
to
of here.
leave.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to see if there's any last thoughts that you have to say about why it's important for people of color, Black people, Latinx, Asian Americans. I know what's the new one, BIPOC, right? Black, Indigenous people of color. Why is it important for people to take control of their own narratives? If you just give us a couple of thoughts on that.
I mean, I think that like you want to see yourself reflected. You want to feel like your story and your life is valid. And I think it is easy to be discouraged because a lot of people will tell you that no, like my first book, only one publisher wanted it. Like other publishers were like, no one outside of America is going to care about this Black girl story, or this won't sell, or this isn't interested. This is like so niche.
You're like, what is this supposed to be? A Black David Sedaris? Get it out of here, Charles.
Yeah, but just like the immediate dismissal of like, oh, this isn't worthy because it's from a Black woman as opposed from like, some hipster white chick. So for me, I think controlling a narrative and taking up space is just like not only to see yourself reflected, but it's just like there are so many insanely talented people out there who I'm like, if they were like a straight white guy, they'd be huge. That, you know what I mean? And so I was watching oh my God, yeah, my boyfriend never seen White Men Can't Jump, and so we watched it recently, and he was like, who is she? And I was like, this is Rosie Perez. And I'm like, she's fully iconic. She's like an incredible actress. Like I love her. And he was just like, she's amazing. And it's just like you see those things where you're like, Rosie Perez is incredible, but Hollywood does not see her because she's not a white woman. And so I think like what's really cool now is with, Two Dope Queens, I guess, and Insecure, and, Fresh Off the Boat, even like Never Have I Ever with Mindy Kaling's show on Netflix. It's like you tell all these different stories, you can see these different cultures, and it's just, to me, it makes me excited to turn on my television. Because I go, oh, I'm going to see so many cool things. And even if I don't fully understand this person's experience, it's like I'm still having a great time. You know what I mean? I think if we can all sort of watch Seinfeld and get it, then everyone can watch Insecure and also get it. And so it's just like,
Absolutely.
You're amazing. And we are so embedded in the culture and we're not really respected for it. And the genius that we exude is often taken by like white Hollywood and made into something else. And so to me, I'm like, it's time that we show off our own genius as ourselves. So that's why I think everyone should just take up space.
That's amazing.
Fantastic.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Fantastic. Everybody, Phoebe Robinson, author, comedian, actor, producer, podcaster.
Too many things.
Hey,
You're
multi-hyphenate.
Multi-hyphenate, creator, polymath, Harlem Renaissance.
And truly an inspiration to us all. So thank you, Phoebe.
Oh, thanks for having me. I miss you guys. I can't wait for us to do comedy IRL together.
I know,
you guys
seriously.
This is so great that you guys are doing this series. I love it. So
thank you for being here.
Me.
Just real quick, even though you gave a couple, any shout outs you want to give to anybody, like people that you think people should look at or follow or think about?
I love Rachel Cargill on Instagram. She does a lot. She's an educator. She's really smart. I love Bowen Yang. God, my makeup artist Delina Medin is doing like these great sort of IG lives where she's talking to like different people in corporate America and in the makeup industry and the beauty industry, which is also highly racialized. So those are amazing people. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but Those are my top three.
You're always going to
Oh,
forget somebody.
Ijeoma Oluo, who I think was on last week.
Yes,
I love
yes.
her. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yes. And she was
Perfect.
fantastic. All right, Phoebe Robinson, everybody. Bye, Phoebes.
Thank you, Phoebe.
Bye.
Cleveland's own Phoebe Robinson. Cleveland's own. All right, Mike. How you feel? What are you thinking? How's the heart?
Man, it's good. About 46, I think. About 46% warm.
Okay,
You know?
that's actually more than I was thinking that would be
Yeah.
this today.
Yeah, the show kind of flew by, man.
It did, as
Yeah.
maybe because we're getting better at it.
I just think I mean that could be it, but I think just the kind of conversations that we're having and the momentum of them and the energy of them, I end up getting a lot out of it just personally. And so like I'm talking to people and thinking about the stuff they say at the same time, and it's just making everything just fly by.
Yeah, and I guess I kind of look at it like this show in some sort of way is an open mic for us, in not an open mic eagle, but an open mic.
Gotcha.
That we're still, this is the first time we've done this exact thing, and we're still figuring it out, and we're just getting better and better at it. Luckily, we started with some good shit, and some good people and some good guests.
And we got more good stuff tomorrow, right?
Yes, we do. We have an episode I think a lot of people might be interested in. This one we're calling The Whites. Anti-racism, allyship, and white fragility and whiteness. Tomorrow's guests are going to be some woman named Jane Fonda.
What?
Yes, Jane Fonda, our friend, comedian, and activist Nato Green, and philosopher Linda Martine Alkov. We're going to talk about some interesting stuff tomorrow. And thank you very much for watching Call and Response. I guess my ending thing is that everyone has to open mic. I guess that's the thing I was trying to say about Phoebe. Her writing her blog was her open micing her writing skills.
Right, developing.
Yeah. Sometimes the open mic is not in front of everyone else. It's just you picking up a guitar and slowly figuring it out. Or drums or cooking or something like that. Just let yourself be ignorant. How are you supposed to know? How are you supposed to know stuff if you're not ignorant?
We want to give a shout out to Funny or Die and a shout out to Blavity for sharing the platforms with us and letting us do our thing every day.
And we'll be here tomorrow at noon. So have a good one. And if you can't have a good one, have a good 3.